When the fight for the throne was at its fiercest, I blocked a knife for the prince, and it took 3 years of treatment in Yaowang Valley before he got better. But the day before I was supposed to return home, I woke up. It turns out that I was just a supporting actress in the book. The prince's real heroine was a maid who traveled through time from his mansion. The son I gave birth to at great risk of my life will recognize her as his mother and even develop illicit feelings for her. And my husband, the prince, will be eager to marry her after I die and write a beautiful story of deep love and affection. In my previous life, I tried every trick I could to defeat the maid, but I still couldn't beat the aura of the heroine. Eventually, my sons became alienated from me, the crown prince despised me, and I died prematurely within 2 years. I even brought harm to my mother's family, and after the crown prince ascended the throne, I was not valued. Living my life over again, I returned to this moment of awakening. In this life, I don't care about husband or son. I only live for myself. But this time, the prince turned to me, his eyes red with anxiety, and pointed at the boy in the other courtyard who looked like him and asked me, "Who is he?" 01. "Princess, we're here." The curtain opened. I opened my eyes from my daze and got out of the carriage with the help of my maid Natalie. The servants from the prince's mansion were waiting outside to greet them. My son Jacob Walker was there too. He is 8 years old and is as tall as my chest. She was wearing a lavender brocade robe, but had a hastily made sachet around her waist, which didn't match her outfit. Looking at the crooked orchid embroidered on the sachet, I knew it was made by the heroine Hannah. Jacob felt a little depressed because all his friends had sachets embroidered by their families, except for him. Hannah caught his attention and embroidered a sachet for him. Although the workmanship was not as good as the worst embroiderer in the mansion, Jacob liked it very much. He said it was a thoughtful gesture. He has never felt the love from me before. My gaze stayed there for a while. Jacob noticed it and reflexively lowered his head to protect his sachet and called softly, "Mother." There wasn't much joy on his face, and he seemed to be indifferent to my return from a long illness. But in my previous life, I thought he was just shy. When I noticed the sachet around his waist, I thought the servants in the mansion had neglected him. So I took it off angrily and told him to change it to a better one. Seeing that I was angry, Jacob agreed verbally, but he was actually blaming me in his heart. In his mind, his biological mother, may be dispensable. 02. I walked up to Jacob and ruffled his hair. He looked up with some emotion and explained, "This was made by Sister Hannah. My son likes it very much." Sister Hannah. The first time I heard this name in my previous life, I couldn't help but scold him. "Jacob, you are the eldest son of the prince, and she is just a maid. How can you call her sister?" Because I knew that she would replace me in the future, I never had a good impression of her. She also asked Jacob to call her sister. I felt even more unhappy. But the prince and Jacob didn't care about my displeasure. All they cared about was whether Hannah was happy or not. I was silent for a while, facing Jacob's slightly guilty gaze, and did not scold him like I did in my previous life. I just said, "Yeah." Jacob was a little surprised. I said, "If you like sachets, then Mother will make one for you." Jacob's surprise turned into surprise. "Really?" Natalie whispered, "Crown Princess, the Valley Master said that you still need to rest." I stopped her from talking. "It's just a sachet. No matter how much I rest, I only have 5 years left." I couldn't even watch Jacob grow up. What's wrong with making him a sachet? Just think of it as leaving him some good memories. 03. After a short rest in the prince's mansion, I went to the palace to meet the queen. But unexpectedly, Prince Ethan Walker was also there. I haven't seen him for 3 years, but he hasn't changed much. He is still tall and handsome, with an elegant demeanor. The look he gave me was surprisingly calm, as if I was not his wife who had just returned from a serious illness, but an insignificant stranger. I met his gaze, and my eyes were as cold and indifferent as his. A trace of doubt flashed between his brows, and he took the initiative to speak. "You are back." Without saying anything more, I walked over and sat down opposite him. We looked at each other in silence. The Queen broke the silence and asked me with a smile, "Lucy, are you okay?" I nodded slightly. "Much better." The Queen said, "You haven't been back to the capital for 3 years. I don't know how much the Crown Prince and Jacob miss you. This time you should stay in the capital and recuperate well. If you need anything, just come to the palace and ask me." "Thank you, Mother." I felt a little self-deprecating. In the past 3 years, Ethan and Jacob's hearts have been on Hannah, so how could they think of me? I'm afraid he has forgotten me a long time ago. "Mother, I have a request." The Queen was surprised. "What request?" I knelt and said, "Since we last parted, I have not been back to my parents' home for 4 years. I would like to ask the Queen for permission to allow me to go back once. Actually, the reason I came back this time was just to see my parents and brother. Otherwise, I would rather die of illness in Yaowang Valley than come back." The Queen sighed. "It's been so long. It's time to go back and take a look. How about this? I'll let the Crown Prince accompany you so that someone can take care of you on the way." Ethan frowned and immediately refused. "I am busy with official duties, so let someone else handle the matter of the Crown Princess' return." The Queen glared at him and said, "What do you mean by others? Don't you even have this little time?" The two seemed to be about to quarrel, so I quickly said, "Mother, I will go back alone. Since the prince is busy, I will not force him." The Queen looked at me lovingly and said, "I'm sorry for wronging you." I shook my head. "I am not wronged." Avoiding Ethan's gaze, I lowered my head, exchanged greetings with the Queen, and then left the palace. Ethan and I were in the same car, and we still didn't talk. It was not until he arrived at the Crown Prince's mansion that he seemed to be unable to hold back and asked, "Crown Princess and I have not seen each other for a long time. Is there anything you want to say to me?" I said, "No." He looked a little strange. "Don't you want to be alone at all?" I asked, "Has the prince ever thought of me?" Ethan was stunned and didn't answer. I stopped asking him. After entering the mansion, we each walked in different directions. At night, someone close to Ethan told him that the prince would not come that night and he would stay in the study. I replied, "Okay." Natalie comforted me. "His Royal Highness must be too busy. He will definitely come when he is free." Under the light, Natalie's eyes were red. She has been with me since I was a child, and she has been by my side countless times when I was critically ill. She can best understand the suffering and pain I have experienced, but there were also things she didn't understand. She didn't understand why the Crown Prince and Crown Princess, who had always been in harmony with each other, suddenly became strangers. She didn't understand why I, who had been looking forward to returning to Beijing, looking forward to getting better, and looking forward to meeting my husband and son, suddenly stopped having any expectations. In fact, the bottom line is that I have let it go. For them, I struggled and tried desperately to stay alive. But I found that my husband and son were actually glad that I died early. If I don't die, how can I make room for their sweethearts? 04. The lamp petals dripped softly. I thought back to my previous life, when I saw Ethan hugging Hannah and kissing her. The girl's lips were swollen from being kissed, and her eyes were filled with mist. She pushed Ethan away, reluctantly. "Don't kiss me. Kiss your princess instead." "Are you jealous?" Ethan pinched her chin, his eyes full of doting. When he mentioned me, he spoke in a nonchalant tone. "You are different from Lucy Young. She is the Crown Princess. 13 married me. I only feel a little guilty towards her. She is in poor health. The imperial physician said she won't live more than 5 years. When she dies, I will marry you. He had never taken Hannah as a concubine, just waiting for the day when he could marry her legitimately. I dare not think, is the person who sleeps in the same bed with me counting the remaining time of mine every night? Are you counting the days until I die? The knife I blocked for him was poisoned and hurt my lungs, tormenting me for 3 whole years. Every time an attack occurs, I feel like I am dying. If I hadn't thought about him, I would have had a hard time holding on. I suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Just this one mouthful of blood destroyed my possibility of living for 2 more years. As a result, in my previous life, I passed away at the age of less than 27. In this life, I don't want to repeat the same mistakes. 05. After going to bed early, Natalie and I returned to Young's house the next morning. It happened that my father and brother were on vacation, so our family was reunited and had a great time. They looked at me, said I had lost weight, and asked me how I had been spending the past 3 years in Yaowang Valley. I picked up some lighthearted things to say and didn't mention the several times I was in life and death situations. Father smiled and said, "That's good. It was right to send you to Medicine King Valley. 3 years ago, when I was hit by a knife, I almost had one foot in the gate of hell. The imperial doctors were helpless, so my brother and father traveled thousands of miles to find the master of Yaowang Valley to treat me. He is a little old man with a bit of a weird temper, and he never wants to leave Yaowang Valley. So after getting the emperor's permission, I was sent there and began my long detoxification journey. During these 3 years, I also kept in touch with my family through letters, but I only reported good news and not bad news, as it was never as good as seeing them in person. After dinner, my mother and I chatted in the room. I asked her, "Mom, do you think the prince and I have a chance to get divorced?" Mother was shocked. "Why are you talking about this all of a sudden? How has the prince treated you badly?" I didn't know what to say, so I said vaguely, "I feel like he has someone else in his heart." Mother breathed a sigh of relief. The prince is the future monarch, and it is common for him to have 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. As long as the concubines below cannot surpass you, just turn a blind eye. You are not in good health, and giving birth to Jacob has already taken half of your life. The royal family wants to continue to have children, so sooner or later they will let him take concubines. It's not that I don't want him to have a concubine, it's just that I don't have any feelings for him anymore. My mother was stunned and understood what I meant. She frowned and said hesitantly, "Your marriage to the prince is the will of the emperor. Unless you make a big mistake and are divorced by the prince, otherwise. Lucy, don't do anything stupid." Mother held my hand tightly and I patted it soothingly, sighing, "Don't worry, Mother. I am not only representing myself now, but also the Young family. I won't do anything stupid. Although I cannot divorce, I have other ways to leave the prince's mansion. Mom, please teach me embroidery." I changed the subject. My mother asked curiously, "What do you want to learn this for?" I said, "Make a sachet for Jacob." 06. When we returned to the prince's mansion, the sachet was ready. The glossy satin is embroidered with winter plum blossoms, which looks very delicate. I tied it for Jacob, and his eyes sparkled as he said, "Thank you, Mother." Natalie laughed and said, "Your Highness, you don't know that the crown princess stayed up late to learn for you." She even pricked her fingers while holding the lamp. Jacob was stunned. Then he noticed the wound on my fingertips. There was a trace of shame in his eyes. "I have troubled my mother." I said, "Just remember your mother's kindness." After that, he gave him some cakes and then sent him away. A few days later, he came to pay his respects, and I found that the sachet around his waist had turned into one. I asked, "Where's your sister Hannah's?" Jacob was a little embarrassed. I took it down. My classmates said that the two sachets, one delicate and one rough, don't match when hung together, so I took one off. Oh. I was a little surprised. In his previous life, he treasured the sachet made by Hannah so much that he even blamed me. But in this life, I took it off on my own initiative. I drank my tea in silence. Jacob hesitated for a moment, then said, "Sister Hannah's birthday is in a few days, and I want to prepare a gift for her." I asked, "What gift do you want?" Jacob said, "I want to give her a jade pendant as a return gift for the sachet." I nodded and said to Natalie, "Take out the mahogany box from the cabinet." Natalie was shocked. "Crown princess. Go if you're told to." At my insistence, Natalie reluctantly took out the box. When you open it, you'll find a transparent, warm, and exquisitely carved jade pendant inside. Jacob's eyes suddenly widened. I said, "Here you go." Natalie couldn't help but stop him. "Princess, this is the birthday gift that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince gave you. Do you really want to give it to that person?" She wanted to call her a bitch. In the past few days, she has learned that the sister Hannah mentioned by Jacob is actually the personal maid of the prince. I said casually, "It's just a jade pendant. Once upon a time, I cherished this jade pendant very much. But when I saw Ethan make a similar one for Hannah in my previous life, it lost its meaning." Jacob held the box in his hand, at a loss. "Mother, since it was given to you by father, forget it." I said, "It's okay." But the jade pendant was never given away. When Ethan found out, he sent it back to me. He looked at me with a complicated expression. "Why would you give the things I gave you to someone else?" 07. He carved it himself. It was a birthday present for me when I turned 16. That year, I was pregnant with Jacob. 18-year-old Ethan was overjoyed to be a father for the first time. He carved this jade pendant for me and promised that he would never let me down for the rest of his life. But now, he has made this promise to someone else, and this jade pendant should also find a new owner. I explained calmly, seemingly not noticing Ethan's stunned look. He said, "You know everything?" I nodded, picked up the carved jade pendant, and handed it to Ethan. "Return the pearl to you." Ethan was silent for a long time. He looked at me deeply and asked, "Are you blaming me?" I shook my head. Nothing in the world of love can be forced. Besides, I can't stay with the prince forever. I can rest assured that Miss Hannah will take care of the prince and Jacob for me. Ethan frowned. "Aren't you already well? Why do you say you can't stay by my side forever?" I looked up at him, not understanding why he was still playing dumb with me at this moment, and said indifferently, "Things in the world are unpredictable, and I know my own body well. I was less than 27 years old when I died in my previous life. Yellow flowers were scattered all over the ground, and I was lying on the bed like a candle in the wind, with only Natalie by my side. What I pursue, desire, love, and hate are all like the sunlight passing through my fingers, illusory and leaving no trace. In the end, I gain nothing. I don't want to argue anymore." A hint of disappointment flashed across Ethan's eyes. He raised his hand to take the jade pendant, but moved it away just when he was about to touch it. Since this jade pendant has already been given to the crown princess, there is absolutely no reason to take it back, or dash. Before Ethan could finish his words, the jade pendant in my hand fell to the ground with a clang and broke into two pieces. He was stunned. I was also a little surprised. I thought the prince would catch it. When I saw him reaching out his hand, I just let go. Unexpectedly, he suddenly changed his mind, and the jade pendant fell directly to the ground. Ethan looked at the two pieces of broken jade, wondering what he was thinking. After a long while, he squatted down, picked up the broken pieces, and said, "I will replace the crown princess with a new one." I said no, but Ethan didn't listen. 7 days later, the new one was delivered to my room. I saw the familiar carved jade pendant with a strange look on my face. Isn't this the jade that Ethan gave to Hannah in the previous life? What does he mean? I threw the jade aside with a lack of interest. Judging from the time, Hannah should be pregnant. 08. Really? Half a month later, the palace physician secretly told me that Hannah was pregnant and the child was the prince's. I asked him to prescribe some pregnancy-maintaining medicine. Natalie didn't understand why I was so tolerant. She was indignant. "This little bitch took advantage of your illness to seduce the crown prince, and she is pregnant with an evil child. Why don't you punish her?" I have tried to punish her. In my previous life, when I found out Hannah was pregnant, I lost my temper and forced her to abort the baby. But Ethan hates me and Jacob resents me. Even the Queen Mother, who has always loved me, blamed me. She said that the child was something the prince had worked so hard to get, and even if she didn't like the girl, she shouldn't do anything to the child. She also said that I had been married to the prince for 12 years, when I was still young, but after giving birth to Jacob, I never conceived a child again. If I don't give birth, won't that allow others to give birth? The queen said, "Crown princess, you know your own body." Yeah, I know. When I didn't block the knife, I almost died giving birth to Jacob. How can I have the ability to give birth to another child now? I told Natalie this. Natalie cried and her eyes turned red. "But I just don't deserve you." Why can she replace you? Ethan hasn't stayed overnight at my place since I came back. It's obvious who he is with. I wiped away Natalie's tears helplessly. Let him be. I don't have much feelings for Ethan anyway. Natalie was stunned and stopped crying in confusion. I repeated, "Really, I find that I don't like the prince that much anymore. I will go to the palace tomorrow morning and ask the queen to allow me to go to Fengshan Villa to recuperate. Let them deal with the mess left in the mansion themselves." 09. I had made up my mind, and I didn't back down even when the queen tried to keep me. The silk handkerchief dipped in chilly water touched me lightly, and my tears immediately flowed down. "My lady, you don't know that the prince's personal maid is pregnant." When I saw her, I felt upset and depressed. The master of medicine, King Valley, said that I need to rest and recuperate for my illness and cannot be stimulated by any emotions. "Please allow me to go to Fengshan Villa to recuperate, Your Majesty." When the queen mentioned that the maid in the palace was pregnant, her expression changed several times. She looked at me with pity. "Good boy, you have been wronged." I gave a slightly bitter but very sensible smile. This is all for the sake of the prince's offspring. I am not wronged. The queen was pleased and gave me 1,000 taels of gold and asked me to take him to another palace to recuperate. I nodded with tears in my eyes, and after returning to the prince's mansion, I couldn't wait to pack my things. The last person to receive the notification was Ethan. He looked grim. "Why are you leaving again?" I said, "Recover from illness." He asked, "Can't we raise them in the mansion?" I was a little surprised. Logically speaking, if I leave, wouldn't it be easier for him and Hannah to develop their relationship? Seeing the inexplicable emotions in Ethan's eyes, I said, "It's quiet there." After saying that, I looked past him and looked at Jacob. Jacob whispered, "When will mother come back?" I said, I don't know either." I rubbed his head and said, "Take care." The carriage was outside the mansion. Apart from the imperial physician, I only took Natalie and a few servants with me. When we were leaving, a pretty girl stood in the crowd of people seeing us off and passed through my eyes. That's Hannah, the heroine of this world. I was just an insignificant supporting role in her life, and my entire life was described in just a few sentences. She is in my life, too. 10. So I settled down in Fengshan. It is a secluded and peaceful place with beautiful scenery. At the foot of the winding mountain road is a clear and wide river. It is autumn now, and the mountains are covered with red maple leaves like fire. Here, I am not bound by any rules and I don't have to worry about other people's faces. I live a very comfortable life. The imperial physician said that I was recovering well. Hearing this, the expression on Natalie's face changed from sadness at the beginning to relief now. She no longer mentioned the prince's mansion, but matters in the mansion would still be passed on to her by the servants who went to the city to do shopping. Hannah is pregnant. For the sake of the child, she must be given a name as soon as possible. Therefore, Ethan took her as a concubine instead of waiting until I died and then marrying her as the crown princess in a grand ceremony like in the previous life. Rumors about her spread throughout the capital. The noble ladies did not think much of her background and naturally would not invite her to a banquet. Although she is now the only woman in the prince's backyard, her status has changed and she is far less happy than in her previous life. It was not until later, when she gave birth to a son, that Ethan promoted her to Hannah. I still didn't go back. By the end of the second year, the queen sent someone to ask me how I was doing. I lay in bed, pale as snow, coughing. It's a cold winter day. My whole body is as cold as ice and I can't walk. I'm also afraid that I'll bring the disease back to the crown prince and Jacob. I hope your majesty will forgive me and allow me to stay here to recuperate. So, the person was sent back. 11. The beginning of spring in the third year. The weather is getting warmer, so I go out for a walk. But I saw that the grass by the roadside was stained with blood, and there was a wounded and unconscious young man in blue lying there. He was handsome, and even though his eyes were closed, I could still tell that his face looked somewhat familiar. So he was taken back to his residence and asked the imperial physician to treat him. After taking many good medicines, he opened his eyes. When he opened his eyes, the servants around him fell silent. This young man actually looks about 60% similar to the prince. The imperial physician and I looked at each other and felt a little cautious. If the boy is 6 points similar to the crown prince, then he is 8 points similar to the current emperor. But among the princes, I have never seen him. You're awake. I spoke softly and he stared at me without blinking. You saved me, he said. I nodded and asked about his identity naturally. The boy was silent for a moment, then said, You can call me Logan. I'm a killer with no name or surname. Logan is my code name. After saying that, he looked at the sword at his waist. The people around gasped and covered their mouths in surprise. Natalie asked me nervously in a low voice, Princess, this man is too dangerous. Why not send him away? I looked at his injuries and then glanced at his pale and cold face. Is there someone chasing you? The young man raised his eyes, shook his head, and said coldly, Those who tried to kill me were all dealt with by me. I breathed a sigh of relief. In that case, you should stay here and heal your wounds first. The young man asked, Madam, aren't you afraid of getting into trouble? I said, I'm afraid, but I've saved them all. It's better to be a good person to the end. I turned around and went out, calling a servant, asking him to tell my brother to investigate the young man's true identity. He looks so similar to His Majesty, I don't believe it's a coincidence. 12. After a few days, Logan was able to move freely. From the people below, he also learned my identity. I was the crown princess who came here from the capital for recuperation. To repay me for saving his life, he became a guard here. He patrols the surrounding area every day, climbing over eaves and walls, seemingly leaving no trace. Although he is taciturn, he is a martial arts expert, which makes people feel at ease for some reason. I asked him, "Logan, do you want to find your biological parents?" Logan glanced at me and said calmly, "I looked for it, but couldn't find it. I forgot about it a long time ago." Is that so? I thought of the letter my brother sent me this morning and felt inexplicably nervous. If, as his brother said, he really had a birthmark on his waist, then he might be. I'm in a bit of a dilemma. How can I see the back of his waist? You can't just order him to take off his clothes, right? Or you could find a guard and take a look at him while he's taking a shower. I calmed down and started to think. But for several days, no one saw Logan taking a bath. According to the guard, Logan always went out in the middle of the night to wash in the river. He was alert and sharp, so even if someone noticed him and wanted to follow him, they would be discovered by Logan. I went to ask the imperial physician again, and during the treatment, he could find no birthmark. The imperial physician said that Logan's injury was in the thigh and the back of his waist could not be seen. There was no other way. I had to create opportunities myself. Logan. I brought a bowl of soup. This is what Natalie just made, try it. Logan looked at me strangely. No need. But I insisted on handing it to him and then pretended to be soft-hearted and spilled the sweet soup all over him. I pretended to be surprised. It's dirty. Logan, go to the side yard and change your clothes. Logan's inky black eyes looked deeply at me, and at that moment, I felt that he had seen through it. But he still didn't say anything and went straight into the room to change his clothes. The person I had arranged to observe on the rooftop told me that Logan did have a birthmark on the back of his waist. The age characteristics all match, and Logan's identity is obvious. 13. I am going to write a letter to tell my brother about this. Unexpectedly, an uninvited guest suddenly came to the villa. Logan was right next to me at the time, and our three eyes accidentally met. Logan. Ethan. In an instant, the yard became eerily quiet. Ethan's originally calm expression changed instantly. He stared at Logan with red eyes and uttered through gritted teeth, "Who is he?" Logan said nothing and looked at him coldly. Ethan took a deep breath, took a few steps forward, and moved his gaze to me, who was stunned. He pointed at the boy who looked like him and repeated, "Who is he?" Seeing the scene, if you don't know, you might think he was here to catch someone cheating. I reacted and frowned. "He is the guard here, Prince. Why are you here? Shouldn't he be staying in the prince's mansion at this moment? What are you doing here?" Ethan's chest heaved. He suppressed his anger and said with a fake smile, "If I hadn't come, I wouldn't have known that you had a substitute in the other courtyard. Lucy Young, you are so brave." Substitute. I don't even have any feelings for him personally, so why would I find a stand-in who looks like him? I couldn't help but tremble the corners of my lips, looking at him with a hard-to-explain expression. "Prince, you think too much." Haha, am I thinking too much? Or is there something wrong with you? You know it yourself. Ethan roared, his eyes red with anger. He had never lost his composure like this before. He just sneered and ordered his men to capture Logan. I couldn't stand it any longer, so I stopped Logan and said, "He really is the guard I rescued. The servants in this courtyard can testify for me. Don't be unreasonable." Ethan's eyes widened. "You actually said I was being unreasonable?" He looked at me in disbelief, with a hint of jealousy in his expression. "My mother asked me to pick you up, and I rushed here without stopping, but you. I'm going to kill him. Someone come." Almost instantly, the guards surrounded the courtyard, and Logan drew the sword at his waist. I was stuck in the middle, and my head was throbbing. "Prince, can you calm down a little?" Seeing that he didn't believe anything I said and was determined to kill Logan, I could only reveal Logan's true identity. "He is your brother, Prince. Please stop imagining this." There was a sudden thunderclap out of nowhere, and everyone was stunned. 14. What did you say? Logan's voice was trembling. It's true. I told him the information I had found out with my brother these days. Logan is the 9th prince who was exiled from the palace, and Ethan's younger brother. The emperor had been looking for him, but there had been no news for years and everyone thought he had died. If it weren't for that similar appearance, I'm afraid it would be difficult for me to connect the two. Ethan calmed down and studied Logan's face. His expression was somewhat complicated. Could it be that you really are? Whether it is true or not, you will know after meeting His Majesty. I looked at Logan with some shame. I'm sorry, I have been hiding it from you because I was not sure before, so. Logan shook his head. You saved my life and found out my origins. I should thank you. You don't have to apologize to me. He turned and left. It seems that the truth about his life experience makes him feel a little uneasy. Ethan looked at me without blinking, as if relieved. It turns out that I misunderstood. Just now, he was overwhelmed by a moment of jealousy and wanted to drag the adulterer out and feed him to the dogs immediately. But he forgot that given Lucy Young's feelings for him, how could she look for someone else? Ethan raised the corners of his lips and gave me a warm smile. Lucy, I'm here to take you back. Hearing this, I felt mixed emotions. After 2 years in Foamshan, I realized that it was time to leave. If it was just the queen who sent someone to ask, I could still find a reason to send them back. But Ethan came to greet me personally and happened to see me and Logan together. He already had some misunderstandings, and if I continue to refuse, I'm afraid I won't be able to clear myself up even if I jump into the Yellow River. Okay. I had no choice but to say. A look of delight appeared on his face. But I just feel regretful. I'm afraid I'll never have the chance to come to such a great place again. 15. At night, I refused Ethan's request to sleep with me on the grounds that I was not feeling well. There was a little disappointment in his expression, and he said, I just want to accompany you. In the candlelight, those eyes seemed to contain some true feelings. But I have no time to distinguish true from false, nor do I want to distinguish. From the moment he fell in love with Hannah, my relationship with him came to an end. If it weren't for the constraints of my identity as the crown princess, I wouldn't even want to see him. Please forgive me, Your Highness. I refused firmly. Ethan's body stiffened for a moment. He looked at me solemnly and finally went to another room. I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep, not knowing whether it was due to my mood. In the middle of the night, a figure was reflected outside the window. I was about to call for someone, but it turned out to be Logan. He wasn't asleep either, his high ponytail fluttering in the wind. Seeing me push open the window, he was stunned for a moment and whispered, Sorry to bother you. I asked, Why aren't you sleeping yet? Thinking about something. Logan said, I guess he is worried about his background. He comforted her by saying, The current emperor is kind and generous. You don't have to be too nervous. Logan looked at me and nodded. He remembered something. You spilled soup on me just to see my birthmark, right? He really knew. Otherwise, with his martial arts skills, it wouldn't be difficult for him to dodge. I hummed a little embarrassedly. Logan said, Next time, don't beat around the bush. Just tell me what you want me to do. I looked at him in a daze. Under the moonlight, the boy's cold eyes looked like a sharp and bright wild cat. He clearly looks a lot like Ethan, but the feeling it gives people is completely different. 16. The next day, someone from the palace came and took Logan away. After packing my things, I went back to the prince's mansion with Ethan. After 2 years, a new maidservant appeared in the courtyard. Hannah, who had become Hannah, came to see me holding the child and knelt in front of me. Crown princess. She had her hair in a bun and looked pretty, but She was very different from what I remembered. She looked less innocent and less lively. Get up. I gave her some things for the child and let her leave. She didn't leave, but held the child in her arms, biting her lip and saying, "Crown Princess, you are back, and the power to manage the backyard should be returned to you. But you are not in good health. If you are too busy, I can help you out." After saying this, Natalie beside me rolled her eyes and said, "Hannah, don't worry. The maids in the mansion will help." When Hannah was a maid, they were able to handle it in an orderly manner. Hannah, don't worry. When her past identity was mentioned, Hannah's face turned pale. She said nothing and retreated silently. I really thought she didn't care, but in the evening, when Ethan came to my room, he brought up the matter. He said, "Although Natalie is your maid and has been with you for a long time, Hannah is the master after all, and as a maid, she shouldn't speak rudely to her master. Since Natalie has served you for many years, I will not punish her this time. I don't want to hear such things again next time." I wanted to laugh. Isn't what Natalie said true? Ethan frowned. "Lucy." My expression turned cold. I didn't want to say anything when you fell in love with someone else while I was recovering in Medicine King Valley. But now my maid just told the truth, and you want to punish her for it. Since you love Hannah so much, why did you take me back? Ethan paused. His eyes flickered, and he suddenly asked, "Are you jealous?" I looked at him and found that he seemed to be happy that I was jealous. So boring. I turned my head away, but Ethan thought he had hit the nail on the head. Not only did he make Natalie, who was kneeling at my feet, get up, he also came to my room for several days in a row. 17. The servants in the mansion all said that Hannah was going to fall out of favor. Although the crown princess has been separated from the crown prince for 2 years, their relationship is not something she can interfere with. Hannah couldn't sit still. She came to me again, but I didn't want to deal with her, so I just said a few words to her and sent her away. That night, a shrill cry was heard outside the yard. I sent Natalie to check on the situation, and it turned out that Hannah's child had eaten something poisonous. She stood by the pool, crying over and over again. Leah was fine in the afternoon, but she vomited continuously after drinking the goat milk given by the crown princess at night. "My Leah, if anything happens to you, what will your mother do?" She cried so hard that she was out of breath. The servants in the mansion gathered around her and whispered to each other. Ethan held her in his arms, looking at the baby in the swaddling clothes with heartache. "Don't worry, Hannah. I will give you an explanation." I am speechless. Hannah cried, "I know the crown princess doesn't like me, but the child is innocent. Leah is only 1 year old. He doesn't understand anything." Seeing that she was still confusing right and wrong, I stood up and said loudly, "You came to me this afternoon and said that the child needed additional nutrition, so I asked someone to send goat milk over. This goat milk was produced by a goat purchased from the mansion, and it has never passed through my hands. It is absurd for you to use this to frame me." Hannah stopped crying, opened her red eyes, and said angrily, "What do you mean, princess? Am I killing my own child?" "I didn't say you killed your own child. Don't try to hide your guilt." I looked at her somewhat indifferently. In her previous life, her methods were similarly clumsy. But whether it was Ethan or Jacob, they both thought it was my fault because I didn't like her before. I had no way of defending myself and couldn't compete with the heroine's aura, so I ended up in misery. In this life, I have decided to let her go. Why won't she let me go? 18. A fishy and sweet taste rushed up my throat, and I suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Natalie was shocked. "Crown princess." Everyone was in a panic. Ethan left Hannah behind and ran towards me. "Lucy." I fell into his arms and felt a wave of pain in my heart. After 3 years of taking care of my body, it seems like it's almost failing. In a trance, I saw Jacob. He held my hand and shouted in panic, "Mom, Mom, please don't be in trouble." I opened my mouth and wanted to say something, but all that came out was blood. Natalie pointed at Hannah angrily. "It's all your fault. Our crown princess has never done such a thing. Why are you slandering her? Her body has obviously recovered in Fengshan. If it weren't for you, how could she be so angry that she vomited blood?" Hannah was stunned and kept shaking her head. "It's not me. She was dying anyway. Shut up." Ethan scolded her and carried me into the room. Hannah looked at his departing back and knelt on the ground helplessly. It was originally a drama centered around her, but now everyone is busy taking care of me. The imperial physician came hurriedly and worked until midnight before I woke up. Ethan didn't know how long he had been standing by the bed. "Lucy." I slowly opened my mouth. "Hannah's child. I believe you." Ethan held my hand tightly, as if holding a treasure that had been lost and found again. "I will definitely investigate this matter and clear your name." After getting his promise, I fell into a deep sleep. The next day, Ethan called together all the people responsible for milking the goats, but no one was willing to admit that they were the ones who poisoned the goats. The one who finally caught the real murderer was Logan. After he returned to his ancestral home, he changed his name to Logan Walker and dressed in purple, looking extraordinarily elegant. When I passed by yesterday, I saw him sneaking around outside the mansion. He seemed to be dealing with the medicine residue, so I kept an eye on him. Logan handed over the remaining medicine residue, and after the imperial physician examined him, it was confirmed that his child and Hannah's child were poisoned by the same poison. Ethan looked at the murderer at his feet. His pupils suddenly shrank. "It's you." 19. The person who poisoned him turned out to be the guard beside Ethan. Ethan was furious. He couldn't believe that the guard he trusted would do such a thing. Under torture, the guard confessed the truth. It turns out that he has admired Hannah for a long time. Seeing that Hannah was ignored because of my return, I came up with a plan with Hannah to use the child to bring me down. In the end, he regretted it, but it was too late. He could only wait until the search in the mansion was not so strict before dealing with the drug residue. Ethan killed him in anger, then confined Hannah permanently and gave the child to the queen to raise. I thought he would soften towards Hannah, but he didn't this time. However, this is what he should do. In the corridor, Logan Walker was about to leave after handing over the murderer. I stood not far away and watched him. He seemed to notice my gaze and looked towards me. I simply took a few steps forward to thank him for his help. Logan Walker was silent for a moment and turned his head away. "You're welcome. I just happened to catch the murderer." "Really?" I didn't quite believe it. Logan Walker looked up at me and said without further explanation, "You saved me, and I have no way to repay you. Although I only stayed in Fengshan for 2 months, it is a memory I will never forget in my life." I was stunned for a moment, and Logan Walker took a step back and turned to say goodbye. After that, we seldom met. Only occasionally passed each other at palace banquets. By the 21st year of Xianyuan, I couldn't even attend the palace banquets. My illness came back, and I fell on the bed, weakly saying, "Natalie, go, call the prince. I have one last thing to do." 20. The sweet-scented osmanthus flowers of late autumn floated to the window with the wind. "Ethan is here." He probably didn't expect that I was so seriously ill, and his hand was shaking as he held mine. I smiled and whispered, "Your Highness, do you still remember when I got married?" Ethan was stunned for a moment, as if he was lost in distant memories. The year I married him, he was 15 and I was 13. I was taken away in an exquisite sedan chair and arrived at the palace at dusk. At that time, he was not yet the crown prince. He's just a teenager. We slept in our clothes on our wedding night and did nothing. He held my hand and was shaking with nervousness. I still remember that the day he and I spent our wedding night together was the day after I became a 15-year-old. He said he would only love me and protect me in this life. And when the fight for the throne was at its fiercest, I stood before him without hesitation. I never thought that Ethan would fall in love with someone else while I was recovering. The love between husband and wife after 9 years of living together day and night is not as strong as that after 3 years. I am disappointed and don't want to dwell on the past anymore, but what if Hannah's heroine halo comes into effect again after I leave? I have a final plan to make. Ethan recalled the past, tears welling up in his eyes. Lucy, it's me who is sorry for you. His voice was choked with sobs, as if he was extremely regretful. I just shook my head and said, I am unlucky and can no longer be with the prince. I only hope that the prince can see that I have been law-abiding for so many years and treat Jacob and Natalie, who follows me, well. If they are not living well, my soul in heaven will not be able to rest in peace. Natalie has been with me since she was a child, so there is no need to explain our relationship well. As for Jacob, although I blame him for being distant from me in his previous life, he has not reached that point in this life. He is still my son. I promise you. Ethan murmured, as if to comfort himself. You will get better. I won't let you die. He tried his best to keep me, but life and death are not up to him. I swallowed the blood in my mouth and said slowly, and one last thing. Please, Prince, sentence Hannah to death. After much thought, I feel that only death can relieve me of my worries. Otherwise, given the hatred we have, if she gains power again, she will take revenge on the people around me. I won't allow it. 21. Ethan didn't hesitate at all. Okay, I promise you, you take good care of your injuries, Before he finished speaking, the blood that I couldn't hold back spurted out. It was dripping and mottled, splashing onto his hands. Jacob and Natalie both rushed over. I took one last look at them, and when I closed my eyes, all I heard was crying. After death, the soul returns to the underworld. But my soul still remains here and saw everything that happened after my death. Jacob and Natalie cried uncontrollably, and even Ethan shed tears. As I requested before I died, Ethan executed Hannah. Hannah knelt at his feet, pulling at his shirt and begging for mercy. No, Ethan, you once said you loved me. You said I was different from everyone else. Have you forgotten that? Ethan looked at her indifferently, as if the woman in front of him was not the one he had fallen in love with. And I have seen this kind of look countless times in my previous life. The guard stepped forward with the poisoned wine. Hannah, let's go. Hannah struggled desperately, but Ethan grabbed her chin with his hands and poured the liquid down her throat. She looked at the man in front of her in despair, cried bitterly, and vomited blood. Gradually, she lost her breath while struggling. 22. Jacob grew up day by day. He still wore the sachet I embroidered for him around his waist because it was the only thing I left for him. Sometimes, he would tell the sachet that he missed me. I couldn't help but sigh beside him. Time passed, and soon it was the 27th year of Shenyuan. The emperor abdicates and Ethan ascends the throne. He selected many women who looked like me to enter the palace and looked for traces of me in them. Everyone says that His Majesty loves me deeply. But when I look at those stand-ins, I just find them ridiculous. Ethan was just satisfying himself. As the white moonlight in the eyes of palace maids and concubines, some people envy me, some are jealous of me, and some people think that I just died when Ethan loved me the most. Maybe. I'm already dead. Why should I care what they say? But in the next life, I don't want to meet Ethan again. I just want to be healthy, happy, and live my life in peace. And Logan. Logan returned to Fengshan Villa alone. I'm sorry, I only realized your feelings after I died. But I couldn't respond. I'm sorry. I'll go first. Extra. Ethan's perspective. The majestic imperial palace is swaying in the wind and rain. I lay in bed, dreaming of old scenes coming back like a tide. That was the 13th year of Shenyuan. The first year Lucy Young was away. The new maid spilled the tea. I looked up and was about to scold him, but I was stunned. In fact, I have been having the same dream since Lucy Young left. In the dream, my always gentle and considerate princess would turn into an unreasonable jealous woman, and the girl in front of me was my true sweetheart. We are together for life. I thought, how is this possible? It was just a dream. However, when I asked the other person's name, he gave the same answer as in the dream. She said, "My name is Hannah." It's really her. I was stunned. I slowly began to believe that the scenes in my dreams were our future. Before I knew it, I was becoming more and more interested in Hannah and increasingly disliked Lucy Young. In the 16th year of Shenyuan, Lucy Young returned. But to my surprise, she didn't pester me or target Hannah like I dreamed. She was indifferent, as if she didn't care about anything. I felt an inexplicable panic about this change. I couldn't help but test her, but I ran away in the face of her cold response. I always feel that she seems to be getting farther and farther away from me. She even gave away the jade pendant I gave her to someone else without any care. I was angry at first, but when I walked up to her, for some reason, I felt a little bitter. I asked why, but she said that she had known that I had changed my mind. "I'll return your pearl to you." She held the jade. My hands were almost shaking. I don't want her to pay it back. Even though I already have Hannah, Lucy Young's every move still tugs at my heart. I took the broken jade back to my room, but no matter how I tried to repair it, it couldn't be restored to its original state. Just like our feelings. Lucy Young was right. I was the one who changed first. I became distant and disgusted with her because of a dream, and I am sorry for her. I wanted to make amends, but Lucy Young moved to Fengshan Villa. She seemed to not want to see me anymore. I feel a little angry and a little heartbroken, just like being angry. In the first year, I resisted the urge to look for her. The next year, I started to talk to the queen in an indirect way. In the third year, I couldn't help but go there in person. But she is with another man. Jealousy got the better of me, and I wanted to execute that man immediately. Especially when I saw that the man had a face similar to mine, I immediately thought, could it be that Lucy Young was completely disappointed in me and so found a replacement? Why not look for me in person? As long as she nods, I will immediately make peace with her. I was relieved when I later found out it was just a misunderstanding. I dare not think about it. What would I do if Lucy Young fell in love with someone else? Absolutely not. She is mine, and I will not let her go. I took her back home, but she was not happy at all and didn't let me get close to her. When Hannah wronged her, I looked at Lucy Young and thought she would beg me. However, what greeted her was Lucy Young vomiting blood. Her health deteriorated, and she often fell into a coma. 2 years later, he couldn't even get out of bed. When the maid beside her came to call me, I thought she was finally willing to forgive me and take the initiative to see me. But I didn't expect that it would be the last time I saw her. She asked me, "Do you remember when she got married?" How could I not remember? At that time, she was a small, slender, and gentle girl, like the fragrant and graceful jasmine. But now, I am sinking deep into the mattress, like frost that is about to melt. She died in the 17th year of our marriage. Yenna. I stretched out my old hand and grasped at the void in vain. I think, if there is a next life, I would like to meet Lucy Young again. No matter if she becomes jealous, suspicious, no matter if she remains weak and sickly. I want to ride the horse again, meet her, and hold her hand. Never let go. Logan's perspective. My code name is G. Ever since I can remember, I have been staying in Qianji Pavilion with my master. We are killers, and killers don't care about feelings. However, when my master was backstabbed by his companions, I still left Qianji Pavilion to avenge him. The pavilion master sent people to hunt me down. When I was at the end of my rope, I collapsed at the foot of Fengshan Mountain. When I woke up, there was a beautiful and pale woman in front of me. Her eyes were soft as water, without any hostility. I asked her, "If you saved me, aren't you afraid of getting into trouble?" But she said, they were all saved. During the period of recuperation, all kinds of rare medicinal herbs were bought in large quantities. I calculated the money I owed for medicine and found that I couldn't pay it back even if I sold my things, so I asked her if I could be a guard here. Fortunately, she agreed. I heard from the servants that she is the crown princess. Why would the crown princess be in such a remote place? I do not understand. I hid in the shadows, maintaining my killer habits, and watched her. Every day, she gets up very late, and after waking up she will walk around the yard and touch the roses she planted. For lunch, she often eats light food, such as fish fillet and shrimp porridge and lily and lotus seed soup, which she seems to like. It's just such a small bowl. Can it really fill you up? I stared at her intently, and before I knew it, I had figured out all her habits. I even knew she was investigating me. She was too weak to guard against me, I thought. What if I approached her on purpose? Does she trust me that much? This realization makes me happy. I couldn't help but appear in front of her frequently, hoping that her eyes would also stay on me. A little more, a little longer. If that person didn't show up. Ethan, the current crown prince, is also her husband. The first time I saw him, my heart sank. I seemed to know why she saved me. Two similar faces, revealing my past life. We had to separate. I did Logan Walker, and she went back to Ethan. But she was not happy. Prince Hannah slandered her for poisoning the child, and people outside said she was a vicious person. Even though there was no evidence, the blame was still thrown at her. I don't believe she would poison me. After some investigation, I finally found the real culprit. I personally brought her to the prince's mansion and met her again. She seemed even more haggard. I sent her a lot of medicinal herbs. In order to avoid suspicion, it was passed on through several twists and turns by someone else. But these still could not save her life. 2 years later, she died. The moment I heard the news, I felt a buzzing in my ears. When I came to my senses, the blood coming out of my mouth had stained my clothes red. I ran towards the prince's mansion regardless of my own safety, but was stopped by the guards the moment I stepped out of the door. "Master, no. If you go like this, it will only damage the reputation of the crown princess and make outsiders think." I stopped frozen in my tracks. It turns out that I didn't even have the right to take a last look at her. Finally, I had no choice but to return to Fengshan. Go back to that villa. Her voice, smile, and appearance seemed to still remain here. But that was a long time ago.